When the radio went silent, even their own commanders gave them up for dead. But the truth was, their story was just getting started. A burst of static. Then a voice, sharp, urgent, unmistakably British, crackled through the speaker. Contact, contact, enemy sighted, grid 2-4. The transmission broke apart, dissolving into a mess of overlapping shouts and the unmistakable sound of gunfire. For a heartbeat, the world shrank to the desperate struggle of men fighting for their lives, unseen and unheard, somewhere far behind enemy lines. Then nothing, silence. The radio went dead. In the operations room, faces tightened. Eyes flicked to the clock. Each second without contact felt like an hour. The mission was a long shot to begin with. An SAS patrol sent deep into hostile territory, tasked with gathering intel no one else could get their hands on. Now, with the radio silent, the unspoken conclusion hung heavy in the air. They were gone. A commander's voice, low and serious, cut through the tension. We've lost them. Around the table, men who'd seen too much war exchanged knowing glances. They knew what this meant. In the world of special operations, silence was rarely a good thing. It was the sound of plans falling apart, of hope fading away. Outside, the night closed in. Somewhere out there, a few of Britain's finest were either dead or about to be. The official line was cautious, but the truth was harsh. No one expected them to make it back. The mission log was quietly updated. The families weren't told yet, but the wheels were already in motion. On screen, a stark message appeared. We thought they were dead. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The world kept turning, but in the shadows, a story was still unfolding, a story no one expected to hear. Because what happened in those lost hours would become the stuff of legend. The year was marked by uncertainty and violence. Across the region, the landscape was a mess of ruined towns, burned-out vehicles, and the constant threat of ambush. This wasn't a battlefield with clear front lines or predictable movements. It was a place where the enemy blended in with the locals, where every shadow could hide a rifle, and every road could be rigged with explosives. The rules of engagement were blurred, and the cost of a single mistake was measured in lives lost and missions gone wrong. Intelligence reports were getting worse and worse. Enemy forces were massing in numbers not seen in months, their supply lines running deep, and their command structure more advanced than expected. Satellite images showed convoys moving under the cover of night, weapons hidden in abandoned buildings, and encrypted communications buzzing through the airwaves. The enemy was adapting, learning, and getting bolder every day. At the center of this chaos lay a single, crucial target, a suspected enemy command post, buried deep within hostile territory. Intelligence analysts believed that this was where the enemy's next major attack was being planned. The information hidden inside could change the course of the entire campaign if someone could just get close enough to grab it. But the risks were enormous. The area was a fortress, surrounded by patrols, informants, and layers of early warning systems. Previous attempts to get inside had ended badly, lost patrols, missing men, missions called off before they even started. The enemy knew the terrain like the back of their hand. They had the numbers, the home field advantage, and the will to fight to the bitter end. The job fell to the Special Air Service. Their orders were clear and unforgiving. Infiltrate undetected, gather actionable intelligence, and get out without a trace. No support, no backup. If they were discovered, no one was coming to save them. There was no room for error. Even among Allied commanders, doubts lingered. Some called the mission reckless, a suicide run disguised as strategy. Others, more quietly, admitted that if anyone could pull it off, it was the SAS. But the odds were stacked against them. The team would be outnumbered, outgunned, and operating in a place where the enemy had every advantage. For the men chosen, it was personal. They knew the risks. They'd read the reports, studied the maps, memorized the escape routes that they might never use. Each man carried not just his own life, but the weight of the mission, the trust of his comrades, and the silent hope of those back home. This was the ultimate test, a mission that demanded perfection, courage, and a willingness to face the impossible. And into this test stepped a handful of men, trained for the unthinkable. They might not be the biggest, the loudest, or the most publicly celebrated. Their names don't often grace headlines. Yet, within the inner workings of military circles, the men of the SAS command a level of respect that borders on awe. Each operator is a survivor of a selection process so brutal that most hopefuls don't even make it through the initial week. It's not just about sheer strength or speed, it's about a deep-seated resilience. The ability to keep going, to adapt, and to conquer when every fiber of your being is begging you to stop. Within this team, there's the patrol commander, a man whose composure under fire has become legendary among those in the know. He's supported by a communications specialist, a lean figure with an uncanny ability to get radios working in the most impossible locations. Then there's the medic, whose hands have saved lives in conditions that defy belief, and the demolitions expert, a quiet, methodical soul who can transform a few wires and some plastic into a lifeline or a last-ditch solution. Their backgrounds are as diverse as their skills. Some hail from quiet rural villages, others from the bustling heart of the city. What binds them together isn't where they come from, but what they've been through together. Memories flash. Men crawling through ice-cold mud, backpacks laden with rocks, eyes vacant with exhaustion. The notorious long drag across the Brecon beacons, where the silence between men who refuse to give up is the heaviest burden of all. It's here, in the relentless pressure of selection and training, that unbreakable bonds are formed. Trust isn't freely given, it's earned. One blistered foot, one sleepless night, one seemingly impossible task at a time. The outside world often underestimates the SAS, mistaking their quiet professionalism for something less than deadly. But that's a dangerous assumption. These men aren't just soldiers. They're artisans of survival, architects of chaos, and students of the impossible. They are ready. But even the best can be pushed to their limits. Night descends like a dark shroud, swallowing the landscape in a silence broken only by the distant thud of artillery and the subtle undercurrent of anticipation. The SAS team moves under the cloak of darkness, each step deliberate, each breath controlled. Their entry is a lesson in stealth, a low-flying helicopter skimming the treetops, rotors muffled, lights extinguished. The world below is a complex map of enemy positions, each one a potential death trap. The landing zone is a clearing barely large enough for the helicopter to set down. The team disembarks in a matter of seconds, boots sinking into the cold, damp earth. The helicopter disappears into the night, leaving only the sound of the wind and the distant barking of dogs. Almost immediately, the first problem arises, a sudden change in the weather. Rain begins to fall, turning the ground into a muddy mess and threatening to drown out the team's carefully planned signals. They move swiftly, navigating by compass and memory, senses heightened to the extreme. But the enemy is closer than they anticipated. A patrol, its route changed at the last moment, appears on the horizon. Dark shapes moving with purpose, weapons readied, eyes scanning the gloom. The team freezes, hearts pounding, every instinct screaming for them to vanish. A single mistake, a snapped twig, and the mission is over before it truly begins. As they slip past the patrol, another problem emerges. One of the radios damaged during the landing starts acting up, static crackling, the signal fading in and out. Communication is their lifeline, and now it's unraveling. The team adapts, relying on hand signals and unspoken trust, but the margin for error shrinks with each passing minute. The rain intensifies, visibility plummets, and the terrain becomes a labyrinth of water-filled ditches and tangled undergrowth. Every move is a gamble. They narrowly avoid their first major mishap, but the sense of danger only intensifies. The enemy is everywhere, the environment relentless, and the mission has only just begun. And then the mission took a turn no one could have predicted. It hits you like a punch to the gut. One moment, the team's navigating the pitch black, every nerve humming, attuned to the slightest rustle, the faintest change in the air. The next, all hell breaks loose in a furious storm of bullets. Muzzle flashes rip through the darkness along the tree line. Rounds crack overhead, tearing through branches and kicking up dirt. The enemy's on them. No heads up, zero time to brace, just the brutal reality of an ambush pulled off with cold efficiency. Instinct kicks in for the SAS guys. Years of training condense into split-second reactions for pure survival. They hit the deck, snapping off controlled bursts, each man fighting to hold their ground. The world shrinks to the space between heartbeats. The sharp, acrid smell of gunpowder, the thud of bullets hitting the earth, shouted orders barely cutting through the din. In the chaos, a radio takes a hit, its voice dying in mid-transmission. The team's lifeline to the outside world is severed. Back at command, the silence is instant and total. The last thing they heard was a garbled warning, cut short by the sound of gunfire. In the ops room, faces turn ashen as the realization sinks in. The team's engaged, and now they're cut off. Protocol calls for hope, but experience whispers the harsh truth. In enemy territory, with no comms and facing superior numbers, survival is measured in minutes. On the ground, the team's scattered by the sheer ferocity of the assault. Two guys are pinned down behind a fallen tree, rounds ripping chunks out of the bark. Another crawls through the mud, searching for a better firing position, blood making his sleeves slick. The medic drags a wounded comrade to cover, his hands rock steady even as the world explodes around him. The demolitions expert, separated from the others, rigs a charge, one last ace up his sleeve if escape becomes impossible. The enemy keeps the pressure on, confident and relentless. They know the terrain, they know the odds, and they believe the outcome's a foregone conclusion. For the SAS, the situation's critical, ammo's running low. The rain, which was just an annoyance before, is now a curse, mucking up weapons, blurring vision, turning every move into a struggle. The team's carefully laid plans are falling apart in the face of all-out chaos. Back at base, the clock keeps ticking. No word, no signal. The mission's marked as compromised. Quietly, they brace for the worst. The outside world keeps turning, but for those in the know, a grim sense of certainty settles in. The team is lost. But amidst the chaos, something extraordinary was starting to unfold. In the brutal reality of an ambush, the line between being wiped out and making it through is razor-thin, measured in seconds, and the choice is made when bullets are flying. This is the moment of truth for the SAS, where training becomes instinct, and every skill ingrained through relentless practice is put to the ultimate test against the unpredictable chaos of battle. When pinned down and facing superior numbers, the team doesn't just try to fight harder, they fight smarter. The patrol commander, though shaken, his resolve unbroken, scans the landscape through the visual noise of gunfire. He spots something others would likely miss, a shallow dip in the terrain running alongside the enemy's advance, partially concealed by reeds and the downpour. With swift, subtle hand signals, he directs the team to break contact not by running, but by seemingly disappearing. Moving as a single unit, low to the ground and silent, they use the environment as both protection and weapon. Their uniforms are quickly soaked with mud and water, but they don't hesitate. The demolitions expert, who had been separated from the group, sets a timed explosive on a nearby line of trees. When it goes off, the explosion sends up a screen of smoke and debris, concealing the team's movement while creating confusion among the attackers. It's more than a distraction. It's a clear signal. They are not going down without a fight. Communication is reduced to glances and gestures as the radio is useless dead. Yet, the team's cohesion is absolute. Every man knows his job and trusts his comrades to do theirs. The medic, carrying the wounded, moves with a quiet efficiency honed by countless drills. The communications specialist, unable to call for backup, uses a mirror to flash coded signals through the rain, hoping to catch the eye of someone friendly on the horizon. As the enemy closes in, the SAS use every trick they know to deceive them. They leave false trails, boot prints leading into a thicket rigged with tripwires, spent shell casings scattered to suggest a final stand. They backtrack, moving through water to mask their scent and wipe away their tracks. Every move is carefully planned to buy them time, to make the enemy second-guess themselves, to hesitate. The commander then makes a daring call. Instead of heading straight to the planned extraction point, the team will take a wide detour, moving deeper into enemy territory before circling back. Risky, but it throws off the pursuit. The enemy, expecting a desperate escape, finds only silence and empty ground where they expected a fight. Through it all, their discipline never wavers. Ammunition is carefully rationed, every shot counts. The team moves in complete silence, communicating with only the slightest nods and touches. When exhaustion threatens, they tap into reserves built up over years of intense training, memories of selection, of nights colder and darker than this one, of promises made to each other and loved ones back home. Improvisation becomes essential for survival. The demolitions expert creates a makeshift claymore mine from salvaged explosives to cover their retreat. The medic uses strips of uniform to bandage wounds, stretching their limited supplies. The communications specialist, always resourceful, takes apart the damaged radio to create a crude listening device, picking up enemy chatter and giving the team a critical advantage. It's not luck that keeps them alive. It's unwavering discipline, a refusal to panic, and the ability to adapt faster than the enemy. It's the calm leadership of a commander who never raises his voice, and the unspoken understanding between men who have stared death in the face before and know that survival depends on teamwork. As dawn breaks, the team is beaten and bloodied but alive. They've escaped the trap, leaving the enemy searching through empty terrain and splintered trees, but the ordeal is far from over. Every hour brought new dangers and the cost was rising. Survival after the ambush wasn't just about medals or headlines, it came at a deep personal cost. The team trudged through the ravaged land, each step a test of their spirit. Blood stained their quickly bandaged wounds, and exhaustion and pain hollowed their faces. Supplies were dwindling, water rationed to the last drop, ammunition counted with a somber focus. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, stealing their concentration, but they couldn't afford to stop. The medic worked silently, his hands steady despite his own throbbing injuries. He tended to a comrade with a shattered leg, whispering words of comfort that sounded weak against the distant echoes of gunfire. The demolitions expert, hobbled by shrapnel, pushed on, refusing to slow the group down. Each man carried not just his own weight, but the burden of those around him. In rare quiet moments, memories surfaced. Faces of loved ones flickered in their minds, children waiting for their fathers, partners clinging to hope. The commander felt the crushing weight of responsibility for every decision he made, each choice a gamble with lives he knew intimately. Doubt crept in, cold and persistent. Had he chosen the right path? Could he have done more? Not everyone made it. The team had to leave a fallen brother behind, marking the spot with a silent promise. Grief was a private burden, buried beneath layers of discipline, yet it lingered in every glance, every clenched jaw. The mission demanded everything, and the price was paid in flesh and spirit. Still, they pushed onward. The bonds forged in training were tested in the fires of survival. Each man drew strength from the others, from the understanding that quitting was not an option. The mission wasn't over yet. The hardest part was still to come. Dawn arrived, casting a cold, indifferent light. The battered and depleted SAS team faced their final trial. Enemy search parties swept the countryside, their shouts and the sounds of dogs echoing through the mist. Helicopters circled above, their rotors cutting through the air, searching for any sign of movement. The team knew the net was closing in. Every instinct screamed that time was running out. They moved with a desperate precision, slipping through hedgerows and ruined farmsteads, using every bit of cover the land offered. The commander led them on an unexpected route, doubling back through enemy territory, wading through streams to throw off their scent, hiding in the shadows of abandoned vehicles. Each decision was a risk, but hesitation meant death. They carried the wounded in silence, their pain evident with every step, but no one was left behind. Once, a search party passed so close that the team could hear the enemy breathing, the clicks as safeties were checked. Hearts pounded in their chests, but they made no sound. The SAS had learned to become invisible, to meld into the earth itself. When the danger passed, they moved again, slowly now, but with a fierce determination that refused to break. They were out of supplies. Hunger and thirst gnawed at their resolve. The radio, patched together with scavenged parts, crackled with static but offered no hope. Still, the team pressed on, guided by their compass, their memories, and the unspoken promise that they wouldn't let each other down. Not now, not at the end. As they neared the extraction point, the final obstacle loomed, a wide, open field exposed and watched by enemy sentries. There was no way around it. The commander made the call, one last desperate gamble. The demolitions expert, despite his injuries, crawled forward and set a diversion, a timed charge in a distant barn. When it exploded, chaos erupted. Enemy forces rushed toward the explosion, leaving the field unguarded for a moment. The team moved. Every muscle screamed, every nerve was raw, but they sprinted across the open ground. It felt like an eternity. Bullets whizzed past, but the enemy was too late. On the other side, a low whistle signaled the arrival of friendly forces, an extraction team, risking everything for a chance to bring them home. Hands pulled the survivors into the waiting vehicle. For a moment, there was only the pounding of hearts and the stunned realization that they had made it. Against all odds, against every expectation, the SAS emerged from the jaws of death, scarred, depleted, but unbroken. Relief washed over the team, mixed with grief for those they'd lost and awe at what they'd endured. They had achieved the impossible, not by luck, but through courage, discipline, and the refusal to give up. But what happened next would have repercussions far beyond this single mission. Word of the survivors' return hit the command structure like a thunderclap. Initially brushed off as some kind of miracle, it quickly morphed into a key example, a tale recounted in briefing rooms and lecture halls, a masterclass in pushing boundaries. The SAS unit, previously written off, had not just pulled through, but had done so by drawing on their discipline, resourcefulness, and sheer grit. Their experience was scrutinized, analyzed down to the smallest detail by strategists and soldiers alike, redefining what special forces could pull off when facing the worst possible odds. Back at base, the experience had left its mark. The loss of comrades was a palpable weight, felt in the quiet moments and empty spaces. Yet the mission's accomplishment set a new bar, a standard of toughness that would mold future generations of operators. Medals were awarded, not just for courage facing the enemy, but for the understated heroism of holding on, for not giving in when all hope seemed lost. Outside the confines of the regiment, the story gradually seeped into public consciousness, always half-hidden, but a vital part of the unit's identity. It became the standard of what it meant to be SAS, to be overlooked, to take on the impossible, and to make it back, forever changed but never beaten. The lessons learned during that mission would spread far and wide, shaping tactics, galvanizing allies, and sending a clear message to enemies that the quiet professionals of the SAS were a force to be respected. Ultimately, making it back was just the start, and the legend lives on.